When we think of conservation, we think of vast open spaces and massive national parks like the Kruger or Table Mountain. But did you know that conservation efforts are being made all around us in the urban environment? And this morning, we're joined by Andrea von Gunten from the Cape Town Environmental Education Trust to give us some insight into what work is being done right in front of our very eyes. It's time to get into the wild. Always such an uplifting way to start a morning. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrea. And
Thanks for having me.
You represent the Cape Town Environmental Education Trust, or CTEET,
yes,
as you call it.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about who CTEET are.
So CTEET is a non-profit organisation, mainly with a focus to protect the pristine biodiversity that we have in Cape Town. They have three main focuses, so that being environmental education programs, training and education and learnerships for school graduates, and then also the Nature Care Fund. So that's kind of like where I fall in as a conservation manager, then working on some of the sites in Cape Town.
Yeah, and I understand that a lot of your efforts are also concentrated on helping kids appreciate nature.
Yes.
Why is that so important?
You know, this is actually, one of the main focuses of CTEET, and very important just to bridge the gap between our youth of today and the environment. And as we know, kids these days don't get outside a lot. And CTEET really gives them the opportunity to experience nature right on their doorsteps, especially for the kids that maybe won't have the opportunity to visit the Kruger or the faraway national parks.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they can visit Rondevlei at a camp, which could be a walking distance from their house.
Wow.
And also to really help kids feel that they can be a part of something special and feel proud of Cape Town, you know, and the biodiversity that we have here.
Absolutely. Looks like a lot of fun is had on these outings. Give me more detail on the programs that you are running for the children out there.
So there are a few different programs, environmental education programs, which might include the day programs, the camps, which are very popular and kind of where CTEET started. So these camps would bring children from the surrounding areas, for instance, in Grassy Park and around Rondevlei Nature Reserve. Yeah. And they get to attend a camp on a very cool island in the middle of Rondevlei, which once you're on the island, you feel that you are somewhere in the Kruger. And then there's also the day programs that they do, as well as training and learnerships that are offered to the school graduates. So really to help them get into the green economy and just give them that foot in the door. Oh,
beautiful pictures as well to accompany all the work that you are doing. If you'd like to find out more about what they are doing at CTEET, you can follow them on social media at CT Enviro Ed. And we'll be chatting to Andrea a little bit more, a bit later on, to find out more about the conservation efforts that are happening at CTEET. It's my feel-good breakfast show. As you can see, I take my job rather literally and seriously as we get back into the wild with Andrea von Gunten. She joins us from CTEET, the Cape Town Environmental Education Trust, and we're finding out more about the conservation efforts that are happening in and around Cape Town. And in particular, when we talk about urban conservation, because that's what you're focused on, right? What exactly does that entail?
So, you know, urban conservation is exactly what the word suggests, and that's really trying to conserve our natural areas we have left here in Cape Town in an urban setting. So it's a bit different to the Kruger, for instance, as, you know, we have nature reserves which border right on to the city edge and urbanization, and there's really that very close interaction between people and our conservation areas. So, lots of dealing with people and...
So we're looking at pictures like this of water distribution points in areas that are near a settlement or an area that we're trying to keep clean, right?
Yeah.
Something along those lines?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about the work that you're doing in Muizenberg, because I understand that's also a large part of your focus, and what environmental conservation efforts are needed in that area.
Okay, so in Muizenberg, when development started in the early 2000s, they recognized the need for housing developments to go up there, but also the need to protect a critically endangered vegetation type called Cape Flatstone Strandveld, which there's probably about 14% left in the world. So we really are talking about conservation on like the edge of extinction.
Wow.
And that's why I think Cape Town is such an amazing place to live in and to do conservation in, just because it's been named the most biodiverse city in the world.
Yeah.
In Muizenberg, we have different sites that we manage. So with these housing developments, they gave environmental authorization to go ahead with the developments, keeping in mind that they put aside conservation land to protect our biodiversity. So these little pockets of natural areas that we have left are what we manage. And yeah, it's just about keeping them protected and getting people involved and creating that environmental awareness around these amazing areas that we have.
Yeah. Now, in the conservation area and in the work that you do, what are some of the biggest threats that you are faced with?
I think first and foremost, one of the biggest threats we face is urbanization. We are, especially in Muizenberg and all over, urbanization is real and it's happening all the time.
Population growth demands it.
Population growth, yes. And we recognize the need for housing as well. So, you know, sometimes conservation comes off second best when it comes to people's needs. So we really try focus keeping these fragmented pieces of land protected. Another threat that we have, one of the main threats actually, is alien plant invasives. So they pose a threat to our natural biodiversity that we have here. And yeah, and then another threat would probably be just helping people to understand the importance of the biodiversity that we have in Cape Town and on these sites.
All right, well, we'll continue our conversation with Andrea shortly, and as I said, you can follow them at CTEET on social media, and later on we'll also be talking about what you at home can do to help conservation efforts around your area. So stay tuned.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
And so it is with the love of the environment that we get back into the wild. We're back again with Andrea von Gunten, who is the manager of the Muizenberg East Conservation Cluster at the Cape Town Environmental Education Trust, or CTEET. And we're talking about environmental conservation efforts that are happening in and around our city in particular. And one of the things that I didn't know, well, I've seen it at Kenilworth. There's a nature reserve, the Kenilworth racetrack, but there's also another nature reserve at the Milnerton racetrack. So there's a lot of places around our city that people don't even know hold a level of importance, at least in terms of our natural environment. Tell me more about those.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, who would have thought that there'd be a nature reserve in the middle of a racetrack?
Yeah, we go every year there to attend celeb events or events on the calendar of the entertainment industry, but there it is, there's one of them right there.
So Kenilworth is very special in that it protects one of the last remaining biggest remnants of another critically endangered vegetation type called the Cape Flat sand fynbos. I mean, this site is just so high in biodiversity with the numbers of endangered fauna and flora species that we have here. And I mean, if we had to lose Kenilworth, we would literally lose species to extinction. That's how amazing the site is.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes.
And you mentioned the Cape Flats. And another very interesting project that you guys are busy with is the reintroduction of Eire into the Cape Flats. I need you to explain that very carefully right now.
Yeah, a very exciting project which started in 2015. Bringing 5 young eland to the Cape Flats, being based at Rondevlei Nature Reserve, forming part of the False Bay greater section. And basically they were brought to the nature reserve to purely be used as a management tool to help save this critically endangered vegetation type. So this is actually the first time in 200 years that eland have been brought back to the area. And back in the day, we used to have these large mammals that used to roam Cape Town, rhinos, elephants, lions. And obviously, having lost that, you know, you lose a very important part of the ecosystem functioning. So they're really trying to bring that back to the Cape Flats and to help regenerate the vegetation type and to keep everything in check, basically. Yeah.
So what can the average Joe and everyday person do to be more informed about conservation efforts in their neighborhood or their environment and to kind of add to that?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I would say get outside, go visit these nature reserves that we have on our doorsteps. I mean, they're right here. If you just had to hop onto Google, I'm sure you could find one in a radius, maybe 10 kilometers from your house.
Yeah.
So really go and enjoy nature. You can do small things, picking up litter, changing your mindset to a more greener mindset. So maybe when you go into the shops, don't take a plastic bag, rather use your own bag, because that might just end up on the landfill site. Yeah, it's really about making the small changes, and I also believe like all the small changes together collectively will really make that bigger difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we as South Africans have something to be proud of, the fact that we are part of an area that has the most biodiversity in the world. Cape Town is that place.
Yes.
And so even when you're coming down to the city, there's more than just the nightlife to be seen. There's so much more to enjoy. And thank you very much for enlightening us about that. If you'd like more information, you can follow Andrea and her team at CTEET. And of course, on social media, they are at CT EnviroEd.